Welcome back to Softcore History. I'm your host for the week, Dan Rochester, and I am joined, as always, by Rob Fox and Jake Goldman.
Hi.
What's up, boys?
What up?
Yeah, you know.
It's vibing.
Nice little day. I'm just happy that it's finally fucking cold out. Got my corduroys on.
Are the vibes immaculate?
As you'll find out on our Patreon episode on Wednesday, they've never been.
Vibes are a myth.
Vibes are stupid.
If anything, the vibes are the best they've ever been.
Yeah, the vibes are immaculate right now, today.
Yes, they are.
So go ahead and check us out on patreon.com/softcorehistory. Every week, you get an additional episode. Plus, Rob writes a blog every weekday.
Every day, Monday through Friday, I break down a news story from history, and not like, you know, like, the Maine exploded. And I'm like, well, here's what happened. I'm talking about random fucking wild shit that every day nincompoops did.
Didn't some guy, like, there was a doctor at this dude's house fucking his daughter.
Yeah.
And then the doctor beat him up after fucking his daughter.
Yeah.
And then he shot the doctor.
Like 2 days later.
Yeah.
He was just waiting for the doctor. So the married doctor was banging his daughter. And he, took a ladder up to the window upstairs, banging his 20-year-old daughter still living at home in 1897.
Get a job.
Kinda. And this guy came upstairs with a butcher's knife, thinking there might be a burglar. Sees the doctor with his daughter naked, so he saw the doctor's boner. Charge at the doctor with the butcher knife, and the doctor, unarmed and naked, beats the shit out of this dad. And by the way, I mentioned this in the article.
Well, how else do you fight a naked man?
What do you mean?
Like,
by losing?
you're going to lose, probably.
To a naked guy, yeah. There's nothing. But the real insult to injury
caught
was
off guard. You're not going to know what to do.
And this guy didn't. But the real problem is, like the real salt in the wound, I guess you could say. I note this in the article, is that this doctor's naked, and he just starts beating the shit out of the dad who charged him. What that means is, it had to be an intimate fight, right? They were on top of each other, blah, blah. So the doctor's penis, which was freshly out of his daughter, her juices were getting on the dad as the guy who fucked the dad's daughter was then dicking the dad down in a more figurative way.
Pornhub, yeah.
They do have these videos on Pornhub, yeah.
But
Stepdad gets it worse.
Daily poop read.
It really is.
So when you're taking a number 2 on company time, it's the best way to fill your 20 minutes.
And I got to say, there's a lot of good ways to learn about history. And one of the best, if you really just want to learn, get an idea about what people used to be like, is just like reading old newspaper articles, because you'll be struck by how different they were, but how similar they were at the same time, and it's just funny. My other favorite one that I did was, and I won't get into this, but the 16-year-old who got his ass kicked by a rooster.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's tried to fuck with a rooster, and the rooster won handily.
He found out.
Yeah.
Man, so I guess like the whole Family Guy bit with Peter versus the rooster kind of makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, so it wasn't a person-sized rooster.
Right, there's like a historical precedent.
Yeah, this kid.
How big was the kid, though?
He was a normal 16-year-old. Fair. Probably should have beaten the rooster.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like anyone should beat.
And this is why I get back to you not being able to beat a baboon or a land owl. A ground owl.
Again, life or death. I'm murking both.
It is life or death.
Yeah.
That situation is life or death.
You don't think the baboon's adhering to like MMA rules?
Yeah, he's got his little baboon shorts on.
There's a baboon.
No biting. No knee him while I'm down.
Yeah, you can't throw a bow into your skull.
Yeah.
I think the baboon eats your testicles and penis so quickly that you lose the will to live.
I don't think so, because I'm going to adhere to the rules of organized fighting, and I'm still going to pick this baboon apart.
No. What are you, Batman? I'm going to keep following my rules even if he doesn't follow his rules? Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't really make sense, though, when he blows up Rachel. You would think he would go nuts.
Right.
On the Joker.
Well, he kind of... No, that was before that, the interrogation scene. You're trash who kills for money. Don't talk like them. You're not. Much as you'd like to be.
You're a freak.
Yeah.
Jimmy Stewart and the Doctor or the Joker are the same.
Jimmy Stewart would have been a great Joker.
He would have been. Well, well, you have to choose. One is at 122. I don't know if I can know.
That's actually
Ha.
that's actually what Jimmy Stewart sounded like when he arrived.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's what he was doing when he was bombing children in World War II.
Slowly laughing.
Yeah.
That's actually a pretty good transition because we're not talking about World War II today, but we're talking about World War I.
Which is the more interesting war.
It's a way better war. I'm obviously fully committed and entrenched in World War I stuff because I just watched All Along the Western Front.
All quiet.
All quiet.
All Quiet on the Western Front. You're right. Sorry.
All Along the Watchtower.
Title.
Yeah. Dan loved that movie, you could
It
tell.
was so good. I remember the name. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was good. I didn't think it was as good as so my number 1 and 2 World War II movies are not World War II, but war movies are Saving Private Ryan and Black Hawk Down.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you want to get into really just great other war stuff.
You didn't like 1917 though, right?
1970 was fine. I was
good.
not blown away by it.
But you like this movie better?
I did like it. I liked All Quiet on the Western Front better than 1917. But I don't think anything. I still Saving Private Ryan, Black Hawk Down, and then Band of Brothers in the Pacific and Generation Kill are on another level from any other piece of war.
But World War I is, I think, the best war.
It's the warriest.
It's the best war to learn about if you really want to learn about
Because
the futility of war. It's the most pointless, violent thing. World War II had a point.
Right.
That's why Americans like World War II, because World War II was a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes.
There was a Hydra.
World War I, there's not really a bad guy.
There isn't.
No, it's a war that was bound to happen.
And actually,
But it was brutal as hell. Terrifyingly bad.
Everyone was gunning
for people
for it,
fighting for 30 feet of land.
of nothing.
Especially on the
nothing.
Front, yeah. But gas was involved. They pretty much had to set rules after this, right? That's what kind of
This is pre-Geneva Convention. Yeah.
Just I imagine led to that.
Yeah. There was the gas was a thing.
One
of the funniest stories is nobody really knew what a war crime was other than the really standard stuff like murdering prisoners of war and stuff like that. So at one point after the Americans joined the war in World War I, we were the first geniuses to come up with a combat shotgun, I guess. And these things were called, I think their nickname was a trench broom.
Yep.
And they were so effective at clearing trenches and it made the Germans so salty that they declared it was a war crime and they would execute any Americans they found with even a shotgun shell on them as war criminals and execute them immediately because they just would hop into a trench with a shotgun and just it's done. Everyone's fucking
You're
done.
clearing the trench. Yeah.
Yeah. You just pop into a trench with a cannon, basically, and you're.
It's I'm gonna hit it.
But they were cool with gas.
I don't know, fucking how.
Picking and choosing here.
Yeah, and it's obviously the funny thing about World War I too is that I think if we fought a war now, something similar would happen. I don't necessarily think it happened during World War II. It certainly didn't happen during Nam or anything like that. But during World War I,
the technology was just vastly superior than our.
In a way that, and
tactics.
beyond even the guns being so good and stuff like that, these technological horrors, these almost steampunk, terrifying things.
You saw tanks
and planes that they couldn't even fucking fathom. Basically,
dudes with flamethrowers.
They were like, what the fuck? That is something that I think would happen now. We would get into a war with maybe China or something, and one day. I don't know. There would just be an invisible drone stabbing you to death or something.
Or that weapon, the sound weapon they're working with.
Yeah.
Or just they finally just break out the Gundams.
The what?
The Gundams. The Megazords, basically.
Yeah. But pretty much.
Yeah.
To where you're like, how does this exist? How? It's like a technological nightmare.
Right.
Yeah.
Someone finds the brown noise.
Yeah.
All of our troops shit themselves.
World War I was essentially a for those people, especially at the end, a technological futuristic nightmare that they were stuck inside of.
And that's why it's so interesting.
Everyone just kept making these machines for killing. Yeah.
It's
brutal.
I don't know how you would survive any type of battle in no man's land.
You don't really.
It's just luck.
The casualty rates are awful. The only thing that the The only saving grace of World War I is that medicine had finally gotten relatively competent. Like injuries in that war and disease in that war, people still died, obviously, a lot. But compared to like the Civil War, like the U.S. Civil War, which is kind of like the last major, extended, large-scale war before World War I, that wasn't like in China or something.
They're gonna saw off your limb, but you're gonna survive.
Right, but most people of them died of like disease and shit like that, and there was just enough to stop it from being so much fucking worse than it already was. In the Civil War, it was the opposite.
Yeah.
It was so much worse than it should have been had it happened 50 years later.
Right.
Today, we're going to talk about 4 different crazy stories from World War I that don't involve that bullshit soccer story.
The Christmas truce?
Christmas
that
truce.
was the one that didn't happen.
I thought it did.
I don't think it did.
I saw a movie about it with that chick from National Treasure's boobs.
National Treasure.
Why was she in the movie with
who's in
boobs?
National
Wasn't
Treasure?
it just guys playing soccer?
Yeah, I don't know why she was in it, but she was in it. Diane Kruger, I think is her name. She was the chick that gets strangled in Inglourious Bastards.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Down in the cellar.
Yeah. She didn't get strangled in the cellar.
Right.
She gets strangled in the theater.
Right.
But yeah, she was in that cellar.
It's
So
Diane Kruger.
Historically accurate.
look at me, knowing boobs.
Good job.
So, first story is going to involve a man named Jimmy Hall. Now,
An
Jimmy-
American?
He's an American.
Oh boy.
Colfax, Iowa.
I appreciate you ignoring the first like 4.5 years of the war
Yeah.
and just jumping straight to America.
Yeah.
Well, so he gets involved in the war before America.
Okay.
Oh.
He's one of
A
them.
lot of Americans did.
Yeah. He was on vacation in the UK in the summer of 1914 when World War I began. He posed as a Canadian and enlisted in the British Army, serving
go.
in the Royal Fusiliers.
Fusiliers.
You're gonna have to like pardon me with some of the pronunciations because
It's nonsense.
I read everything. I didn't listen to anything.
Means you're smart.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
So he was a machine gunner during the Battle of Loos. Loos.
It's probably.
Probably right.
He was discharged after his true nationality was discovered and returned to the United States. Like,
Why?
why wouldn't you just keep him?
They
It's a
need
body.
people,
It's like he's the most willing one here.
right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people are dying. By the way, machine gunner seems like a good gig.
Yes.
Of all the gigs in World War I, I'd prefer machine gun.
No, no. The best gig, if you're not it would be to be some sort of pogue. But if you're gonna at least be killing people still, and maybe be in a little bit of danger, but not really, you gotta be working that artillery.
Yeah.
But if you want to be in a trench, if you're in a trench, the best gig
Machine
is machine gunner.
What's the worst gig? Guy that has to check the trench first? Like, trench clearer?
No, guy that has to run through no man's land.
Oh, just in between the trenches?
Any of them, just guy with rifle.
Yeah.
Because guy with rifle, you can get another guy with rifle.
There's so many guys with rifles.
Yeah, guy with rifle is it's a saturated market.
It's the energy card of dudes in the war.
Now, Jimmy Hall was a writer, and he returned to Europe in 1916 on assignment with Atlantic Monthly magazine.
The Atlantic.
He was to have written a series of stories about the group of American volunteers serving in the Lafayette Escadrille.
Yeah, it's just a French. I don't know if it's probably
It's French. I
regiment
don't need to pronounce it right.
It's essentially they call themselves Lafayette because he was the Revolutionary War general. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah. But after spending some time with the American Flyers, Hall himself became caught up in the adventure and enlisted in the French Air Service.
So he's done this twice now.
Yeah, but the French were taking people left and right.
Yeah. He didn't have to like pose as
He didn't
not
have to
an
fake
American.
it. Okay.
Yeah, because a lot of the war was happening in France. None of it happened in England.
Right.
Yeah, there's a bunch of American volunteers that would serve in the squadron.
Okay.
During his time in French aviation, Hall was awarded the Croix de Guerre with 5 palms and
I
the
believe that's Croix de Guerre.
Croix
de Guerre.
Ah.
Gorilla.
And the militaire. I took 2 years of French in high school. I don't really know it.
Huh? Je ne parle pas français.
I cheated on every test.
Tu es so positif?
I actually got caught cheating because I had my graphing calculator, and I would just put all the answers in it.
Dude, a calculator on French
so
test,
I had my calculator out in French
Yeah.
class.
Yeah,
He's just, what are you doing? I was like, oh, I'm playing block, man.
Do you want to know how I cheated in French in high school? It was much better. So, but it probably was something that you would look sus doing at your public school.
Okay.
So, went to private Catholic school. We had to wear a collared shirt every day.
We had to wear a collared shirt too, even though it was a public school.
Oh, well, then you could have got away with this.
Because they didn't want people to get shot or stabbed.
Actually, dress codes are smart and more. They should just be uniforms for public schools.
Yeah, it's one less thing to think about.
It is, and it actually helps out like poor kids and shit, not feel like fucking shit.
Yeah.
So anyway, what I would do was I had to wear a collared shirt every day. Could be a polo shirt, could be a button up, right?
Sure.
Right.
So I wore a button up, and what I did was I taped a cheat sheet to this arm right
Oh,
here.
you had like a QB sleeve.
And two QB sleeves, and you know the button ups, they got the little
Holes.
opening here.
Yeah.
Whatever. So I just unbuttoned those and just sat there and was like,
You're just reading off plays.
boop, boop, boop. Yep, just
Yeah.
writing, fucking ace that shit. I was never good at French. Well, as everyone knows here, because I'm so good at voices. Great French accent. Couldn't speak it a lick.
I had a better way to cheat in Spanish in college.
What?
Date a Spanish girl.
Maybe it was you
Online
send her for the
exams.
tests.
And it was all online.
Oh well, yeah, you're
Yeah.
good to go.
It's fine.
I will happily, like I would, if I studied abroad for like a semester and some fucking like Italian chick was like, will you help me with my English class? I'd be like, yeah, whatever. Blah, blah,
I'd probably
blah.
still get a B.
I would
Yeah.
because grammar's not great.
And then when she couldn't help, I would get some of my fraternity brothers that were also Spanish-speaking origin, and they were usually worse.
Yeah, I was about to say, would they be like, that's not how you fucking say that? It's
Yeah.
like too proper.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Spanish is like
I mean,
Spanish.
There's a certain type of immigrant in the United States where or a generation of it where they were not good about teaching their kids English, or not teaching English, not good about teaching their kids Spanish or whatever language they had, specifically because they wanted their kids to only know English. Like this Mexican girl I did in college, her grandparents were immigrants. They purposefully did not teach their kids Spanish
Wow.
because they wanted to be American.
Interesting.
Okay. So in 1917, when the U.S. actually eventually enters the war, Hall was made captain in the Army Air Service, serving the American 94th Squadron.
So this is before the Air Force?
The Air Force was not created till after World War II.
Really? Okay. Cool.
Yeah, so even in World War II, it was the Army Air Corps.
Gotcha. All right.
And granted, just like now, there was also naval aviators. I think the fun fact about the U.S. military is that the three most powerful air forces in the world are the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Navy, and then the U.S. Marine Corps.
Yeah. It's like, ha.
And then it's like the UK or something.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that during right now, the Ukraine war, Russia, people stop talking about this because it just got boring, still doesn't have air supremacy.
That's insane how
Yeah.
Russia doesn't have that.
Yeah.
Over Ukraine?
The U.S. doesn't do anything without air supremacy.
Yeah. Well, why would you?
Right.
It's like, hey, why don't we just blanket this place?
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes total sense, too.
Now, Hall was interesting because of this story. On May 7th, 1918, he was shot down by a Dud anti-aircraft shell that lodged itself in the plane's motor.
Oh, so it didn't explode, but it hit him.
It hit him in the motor and just kind of took him out. So he was just kind of
So he was able to
Coasting.
glide, though.
he was able to glide but coast.
Okay.
He survived his crash landing while being chased down by a German pilot in enemy territory.
How did he not get murdered by the German pilot?
Well, he was discovered and taken care of by the German pilots that found him.
Really?
Like as some kind of fraternity of pilot?
Yeah. Just like,
They're
you're
like,
a
don't let
sky
these-
man.
Yeah, forget these mud people.
Yeah.
You're a Sky Knight.
yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened.
They bandaged him up. They gave him coffee and cigarettes, fed him lunch, even played the piano for him.
You like piano, Sky Man?
Yeah.
Us Sky Knights love the piano.
They're Sky Knights. They're Sky Knights, and the Mud People.
Yeah, they like finer things. The Mud People, they have their pornos in the trench. We have piano up here in the sky.
They would rather hang out with a Sky Knight from the opposite side trying to kill them than the Mud People on their own side.
Oh, you're just so glad you're not a rifle guy. You're not guy with rifle.
Guy with rifles, the worst.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they do all this for him. They go to his crash plane, collect all of his stuff, give it back to him, and attempt to drop a note to his squadron at his request to let him know he's okay, which they eventually get word. So yeah, they just they hook homie up.
Yeah. It's like
Actually, you want a real quick note? The most fucked up story I know about a guy with rifle.
Yeah.
It's such a bummer. So this guy, I think he was French, but I don't remember. It was definitely Allied. Was about to get executed for desertion. He was afraid, ran away.
Mm-hmm.
And some big French general was walking by, and he was like pleaded his case. He was super nervous and like because he couldn't get fucking murdered.
Yeah.
And like was terrified and pleaded his case. And the general went and talked to him, and was like, "You are here because you didn't do your duty in battle, and we're killing you to make an example. So if you take this on bravely, you are essentially, again, doing your duty because other people will know that they will have to do their duty. So you are dying for your country in battle honorably by taking this execution." And the guy was like, "Okay, cool."
Changed his mind.
Yeah, changed his fucking mind. The guy proudly stepped to the post and then got executed.
So if he got executed and acted like a bitch, they wouldn't have executed him?
No, they still would have. It's just that he like convinced him to not be a bitch.
It's like, don't make us work more than
But this guy was afraid of dying. And look, there's something to be said for deserting your brothers in arms. You know what I mean? The other guys who have to be there too. That's shitty. But like, you're deserting a war that has no purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Is helping no one. It's meat chess, like I like to say.
Right. Yeah.
That story always is. It's a very dystopian story to me.
Yeah.
Maybe he was trying to get a chicken from a farmer, like Cat.
Cut.
Cat?
Cut. Cut.
I haven't seen.
Cut.
It's been a long time since I read All Quiet on the Western Front. I think it was 15.
I haven't read it.
I read it my sophomore year of high school. It was very good.
It was never on my fucking high school reading list.
It was one of the better
Band
ones.
of Brothers was.
I just read that on my own.
Yeah. So while Hall was in the prison hospital, the German pilot who tried to take him down and the anti-aircraft gunner had a fight over who should get credit for shooting Hall down while they were standing over Hall's hospital bed.
It's easily the gunner.
Yeah, the
The
anti-aircraft
pilot just chased him around and never hit him.
Exactly. The anti-aircraft gunner produced a picture of the shell in Hall's engine and then asked Hall to settle the dispute of who shot him down. Hall gave the credit to the gunner.
Oh,
The guy who did it.
he betrayed the Sky Knight oath.
Yeah, you can't do that.
They played piano for you,
You can't go against other Sky Knights.
Yeah. After the war, he was eventually released, and Hall spent much of his life on the island of Tahiti, writing a series of adventure books, including the Bounty trilogy with another former American pilot, Charles Nordhoff.
Sure. Everybody knows Charles Nordhoff.
Yeah. Those books were great. The Bounty series.
The Bounty series.
Wait, is that like Mutiny on the Bounty?
Um,
Is it about a ship?
No.
Did he write Mutiny on the Bounty?
I don't think so.
What's his name?
Bounty trilogy.
Jimmy Hall.
Jimmy Hall.
Yeah. What if it's just like dope? What if it's like sick? Like
Mutiny on the Bounty, or is that what you said? Mutiny on the Bounty?
Yeah, Mutiny on the Bounty.
Yeah, 1932. That's the first book.
He wrote that?
And then Men Against the Sea, and then
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at me knowing stuff.
wow, Rob.
Mutiny on the Bounty. Yeah, no. I would say the Bounty was a ship. Yeah, it was a famous movie too back in the day.
So I think this is kind of our own version of the soccer story. You know, you get shot down, you get taken care of by the enemy. They feed you, they take care of you, they play music for you.
Oh man, you know, depressing ass World War I photo I saw the other day. It was German soldiers celebrating Hanukkah in World War I.
Oh. Things change quick.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Step into this camp.
Yeah.
it's almost like what we made the Germans sign up for after the war might have caused that.
Oh, the Treaty of Versailles?
What? Don't
You're going to excuse
put the Holocaust on the Treaty of Versailles. What?
Yeah, that's a pretty weak one.
That's like
The
that's like
war
if
is
a homeless guy walks into a school and stabs 8 kids, and they're like, "Well, why?"
See,
No.
The
The
Treaty
reason
You don't
The
understand.
reason Germany went back to war, sure, is probably Treaty of Versailles. That's not the reason they needed to exterminate a bunch of people.
Right.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that's how Hitler kind of came to power, is because it was like a hopeless country. That
Yeah. We
Yeah.
economically
Oh,
ass fucked them.
We continue every time they came up for air, we were like, no, dirt, breathe dirt.
Right.
You
Well,
breathe
it's the
dirt.
type of thing. It's like if you create a vacuum,
Yeah.
or you put, you just create a nightmare situation of a country like Somalia or Afghanistan, right? Eventually, the shittiest person is going to rise to power.
Yeah. That's why we keep doing it. So we can keep going back.
Sick.
Violence is forever.
You want to hear a good conspiracy theory I have?
Sure.
Because I think it's real-ish, and it's actually logical.
Okay.
And I don't think we're the first ones to do it. I actually think it used to be something that would be more considered common, rational historical practice, but now would be a conspiracy theory because it would be uncouth to do it now.
Okay.
What is it?
We start wars all the time to keep a officer corps that's been in combat, just in case.
Yeah, you got to sharpen the blade, right? Keep the blade sharp.
Well, with that, it makes sense, actually. Yeah. And one of China's biggest concerns about being able to take on the West is that they haven't been in a war since 1979. They have no one in their army has combat experience.
What war was that? Was it just Vietnam?
Yeah, they invaded Vietnam after we did.
Oh, okay.
They should just call someone out.
What?
Like China should just get in a war right now with like a rando.
Well, so that's actually a concern, is that they would start a random war. So Russia invaded Ukraine because they want pieces of Ukraine. Well, actually, they want all of Ukraine. But
they would like it all.
That there was actual motive for that. The concern is that China is going to start fighting little micro wars,
like Mongolia.
Dude, they should take over Mongolia. Be like, we're getting it back.
Well, get them back.
Yeah, we're gonna get them back.
Mongolia fucked China up for a long time. So, but that's a concern, is that they're going to fight, just to get combat experience. And that is the theory. That's my theory with the United States. With Korea Korea got invaded, but Vietnam and the Gulf War, and then Iraq, not Afghanistan. We had Iraq War.
I believe it's called the military-industrial complex too.
No. This is not that. That's part of it too.
Part of it.
But no, the United States wants to make sure they have an officer corps who always knows what it's like to be in combat.
So we should do little wars though, like the Falkland Islands. Like we should just fuck with Argentina.
That's fine too. Like anything, even little wars like that. There's enough chaos in that you learn things.
Yeah. Don't fuck with England, I guess.
That's a conspiracy theory I have.
All right. Next up, we have Alan Arnott McLeod, Canadian. Trying to
probably a war criminal.
Yeah, trying to save face with our Canadian audience after our Leo Major episode.
He murdered. Dan's story's gonna be brutal. It's like he skinned 4 Germans alive.
I'm just gonna make things.
And wore their skin.
They were all asleep. Yeah. And by asleep, we mean they were in comas from being gassed by him. But it was for Canada.
He enrolled in the 34th Fort Garry Horse in 1913 at age 14.
Sick.
When the First World War broke out in 1914,
James,
he was sent home because
14-year-olds were soldiers.
He was underage. So even he was just 14, turned 15, and they're like, you can't fight, bro.
Right.
There had to have been, was there a widespread age limit for fighting? Because that must have been weird when you were with allied countries. It's like, dude, that kid's young.
Here's the thing that I think it makes it tough, is that there are a lot of twink-ass dudes back then.
Fair.
And you could pass for 18 a lot easier than you could now.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. But I mean, for example, say, and this is something that doesn't get credit enough. Say you're 48 years old, right? Mm-hmm. And you're in a recruiting station and you're signing off. All those 18-year-old, an 18-year-old to me now looks like a fucking baby.
Yeah, it's true. They looking.
So if a fucking 15-year-old rolls up and maybe he's just tall enough, you're like, well, he looks as much like a baby as the rest of them.
You need bodies too. It's just like,
And you need bodies. Dude, like, I mean, like,
let me tell you about this job. It's called Guy with Rifle.
So no, he was not a guy with rifle. He was also another sky god.
Oh, Sky Knight.
Sky Knight.
Sky Knight, yeah, Sky
The
Knight.
14-year-old Sky Knight? The 15-year-old Sky Knight?
Look, eventually, America's Air Force, as it becomes fully drone, is going to be nothing but 15-year-olds.
It's gonna be kids on the Call of Duty kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as he turned 18, he went to Long Branch near Toronto to train as a pilot. And after only 3 hours of flight time with an instructor, he did solo hours for 47 hours after that.
So we did 3 hours first, and then they were like, all right, kid,
and they're like,
get up there.
You got this. Finish your 50 hours of experience by yourself.
50 hours doesn't even seem like a lot.
But 3 hours with an instructor, that's it.
Yeah, that's a day. You can knock that out in an afternoon.
Like, hope you remember it.
Yeah.
Look, I'll say this. Planes then, a little simpler.
It was up, down.
Right. They weren't doing.
Left, right.
They weren't necessarily doing wild shit that planes now can do, or even planes in World War II.
It's not a Harrier jet. It's a fucking
right. It's not even a P-50, a Mustang.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a fucking biplane.
Yeah.
So on August 20th, 1917, he was shipped overseas to France.
By the way, flight had been invented like 8 years earlier.
That's the funniest part about it all, really.
Pilots in World War I were gangsters, though.
Yeah.
They were.
Everyone was like, oh my God.
Imagine
flight.
if there was a war tomorrow and all of a sudden people were dogfighting in space shuttles.
That was the best part, too, is you could, like, shoot somebody with a handgun.
That's how it started, because it was just reconnaissance. That's my joke about Space Force all the time. When they're like, oh, why'd Trump make that with Space Force? What the fuck does that even mean? And I'm like, okay. Eventually, we will need some sort of Space Force. And while he might have done it before we necessarily had things to do it, in the same way, it's kind of like if Abraham Lincoln started the Air Force because we had hot air balloons that they were using for reconnaissance in the Civil War, which they were.
Yeah, sure.
And, like, I don't know, Lincoln was like, slap a cannon on one.
They had hot air balloons in Civil War?
They had air balloons in the Renaissance.
Oh, that's right. But I'm thinking of Zeppelins. Zeppelins were...
No. They just had hot air balloons. They only use them for reconnaissance. They would go up and just be able to see shit.
Gotcha.
They're over there.
Yeah, there they are.
So McLeod was an
now.
18-year-old second lieutenant in the 2nd Squadron on March 27th, 1918, over Albert, France. McLeod, and with his observer, Lieutenant Arthur Hammond, in an Armstrong Whitworth FK-8, destroyed an enemy triplane and were immediately attacked by 8 more, 3 of which they brought down.
Damn.
It's a lot of planes.
During the fight, both McLeod and Hammond were wounded by machine gun bullets. The petrol tank was punctured and the aircraft set on fire.
Well, it was made of paper.
McLeod instantly pushed over into a steep side slip, and the flames were scorching him as he was trying to maneuver the plane back to safety, or kind of crash land it. So he was getting burnt.
That'll happen.
He jumped out of the cockpit onto the left wing and crouched low with the joystick pulled hard over in the right hand. So he's just kind of like piloting the plane on
From
the
outside
wing.
of the wing?
On the wing, yeah.
Oh,
Sick.
my God.
What a fucking animal.
Yeah.
He smashed through the fabric so that he could reach the wire with his left hand.
So he punched through the fucking fabric of the plane so he could, like, Jesus.
So he could guide her towards the ground.
Men used to be men.
That's like the hardest shit I've ever heard in my life. It's
Yeah.
like, I was too busy being on fire, so I got out of the plane while still driving the plane,
Right.
and then also punched through the plane to better drive the plane.
The plane finally crashed in no man's land, and the pilot, not minding his own injuries, dragged his comrade from the burning wreckage under heavy fire and carried him to safety
Holy shit.
before collapsing from exhaustion and loss of blood. Because he, again, got clipped by a machine gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, that's the worst part of 1917. Like a plane just crashes, the guy pops out and stabs him.
Yeah.
Like that was a hard to suspend disbelief situation.
I kind of believe it though. You know.
Sure, it is what it is.
You know what? World War I gave us trench coats, and we should be thankful for that.
McLeod was
Why? You
wounded.
going back to your high school anytime soon?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. I just like the look of the Burberry trench coat. I think it's a good looking coat.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
McLeod was wounded 3 times in the side, and Hammond was wounded 6 times. Hammond lost his leg, but was awarded the Military Cross, or a bar to his Military Cross. McLeod was recommended for a Distinguished Service Order and received the Victoria Cross. He returned.
That's England's Medal of Honor.
Canada, right?
What?
It's Canada.
But
Well,
back
under
then,
English rule, yeah.
it's the Commonwealth's Medal of Honor.
And our hero returns to Canada to recuperate, but dies from the Spanish influenza.
Well,
You got the
that'll do
Spanish
it.
flu?
He got the Spanish flu and died.
Hey,
wore a
it's,
mask.
hey, it's
He
the,
was
it's the
5 months
Kansas flu.
away.
First off,
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it is. 5 months away from celebrating his 20th birthday.
Oh,
So he survives all this and then just dies
from a
That's
flu.
so shitty.
1918.
It's like you got to think like, oh man, nothing can kill me.
Getting sick.
I flew a plane, like one arm, took it down, dragged my buddy. You know, got kind of fucked up. But
By the way,
nothing's taking me out. Flu.
one of the things that made human beings more susceptible to disease, I forgot to mention this in our Patreon episode, which you should subscribe to our Patreon. We talked about how there was a sort of fewer guys got to fuck at some point. One of the things that made human beings more susceptible to disease was the less variety of genetics.
Yeah. Genetic variation is actually really key in our survival long
Yeah.
term. Like
Yeah.
the more diverse and like the more gene pool sharing,
Yeah.
the more.
So they
the
think
less
that
susceptible
once
we are.
certain people monopolized fucking,
Yeah.
that it made humans potentially more susceptible to disease. Now, we were already susceptible because, you know, we were living amongst animals in mud and shit like that, being sedentary farmers instead of whatever. But another thing that did that was the fact that things got less genetically variant.
That's why. Well, you'll hear what happens to those people in the Patreon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our next story revolves around a hero bird.
A bird?
A bird.
Now, did they make it? They made a movie about this with Ewan McGregor.
Did they?
They actually did.
About Cher and Me?
Well, I don't know if that's who it is, but I'm going to look it up. They made a movie about a hero carrier pigeon, a World War I. Like it was like a Pixar movie, but it wasn't It was Pixar knockoff.
Yeah.
Like DreamWorks or something?
Yeah, it was like a DreamWorks movie.
Yep.
Look it up real quick.
So here's the story of Cher and Me. On October 3rd, 1918, Major Charles Whittlesey and more than 550 men were trapped in a small depression on the side of a hill behind enemy lines without food or ammunition. They were also beginning to receive friendly fire from Allied troops who did not know their location.
Jesus.
So just absolute.
Friendly fire had to be I mean, it was fucking everywhere in that war.
You can't really tell the difference.
No.
Everyone's covered in mud.
Look, a guy with a rifle is a guy with a rifle.
Yeah. That's why you have so many.
Surrounded by the Germans, many were killed and wounded, and only 194 men were still alive and not captured by the end of the engagement. Because his runners were intercepted or killed by the Germans, Whittlesey began dispatching messages by Pigeon. The Pigeon carrying the first message, "Many wounded, we cannot evacuate," was shot down.
Oh.
A second bird was sent with the message, "Men are suffering, can support be sent?" That pigeon was also shot down.
Man, the birds aren't even getting out.
So the movie with Ewan McGregor was in was called Valiant. It came out in 2005. And it's a World War II movie, so I apologize for that.
Well, this is a World War I.
This is a World War I pigeon.
Yeah.
So the artillery batteries supporting Whittlesey's men attempted to provide a barrage of protection for another pigeon to go off. Cherami was dispatched with a note written on onion paper that said,
What?
I imagine it's like paper made from onions.
Or no, it's going to be the paper that just put an onion in, like a little cheesecloth situation.
Yeah.
in a canister on his right leg. It read, "We are along the road parallel to 27.6.4. Our own artillery is dropping a barrage directly on us. For heaven's sake, stop it."
That sounds like the best note to have gotten out. The other one was like, "Can you help?"
Yeah.
No information.
Yeah.
Like
Please
down.
stop is what you want to hear. What you want to send him.
Yeah.
As Cherami tried to fly back home, the Germans saw him rising out of the brush and opened fire. After several seconds, he was shot down, but managed to take flight again. So the bird took one and just kept going.
He ate it.
And by the way, a bullet is like, it'd be like a human being getting hit by an artillery shell.
Right.
Like not an artillery shell exploding next to you. Like just rips through you. Like you get shot by a bazooka. Like the bazooka goes through you, and you're like, I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm still
I
going.
don't need this stomach.
Yeah.
I would think a bullet would essentially treat this pigeon like Randy Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah. It should.
It should. So he takes flight again, arrives back at his loft at division headquarters 25 miles to the rear in just 25 minutes, and he helped save the lives of the 194 survivors. He had been shot through the breast, blinded in one eye, and had a leg hanging on by a tendon. Cherami became the hero of the 77th Infantry Division. Army medics worked to save his life. When he recovered enough to travel, the now one-legged bird was put on a boat to the United States with General John J. Pershing sending him off.
We put the bird on a boat, huh?
Yeah. Well,
Fly.
Yeah.
General Blackjack Pershing was a badass, by the way.
Did we talk about him yet?
What?
Blackjack?
No.
No. I think someone's actually asked us to do him before.
To do Blackjack Pershing.
Just doing an
Yeah.
entire episode.
He's fucking dope, dude.
Yeah.
We should.
I think. Let me look him up real quick. There's some detail I want to maybe mention, but go on. But Pershing's a fucking badass.
So he dies in the comfort of whatever home he's in New Jersey.
Wait, the bird?
The bird, yeah.
What, they got?
I
they
mean,
keeping tabs
good.
on him?
Yeah, because
He died in a nest.
June 13th, 1919, he dies from the wounds he received in battle and was later inducted into the Racing Pigeon Hall of Fame in 1931.
Where's the
oh, yeah.
racing
Pershing's
pigeon?
from Missouri. That's why I knew him. That's why he's badass. Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Pershing's one of Missouri's finest. That means I just want you to know that Missouri's responsible for winning both World Wars.
Cool, man.
I'm sure we can do some type of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon
On Missouri.
on everything, yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't he from there, too?
What?
Isn't Kevin Bacon from there?
No.
Oh,
Brad Pitt.
that's right. Brad Pitt.
Much sexier.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
No big deal. That pigeon, that poor, sweet pigeon. By the way, have you ever heard about why you ever see pigeons with missing toes and stuff like that all the time?
No,
Or like grackles and stuff like that?
I've never paid attention, but is that pretty common?
You don't look at feet a lot?
I know that's a you thing, but yeah,
Bird feet.
even bird feet. Huh?
Yeah, it's even better than
What's the
regular
sexiest
feet.
bird foot?
Well, grackle gets me going lately because they're kind of naughty.
It's got to be flamingo.
You know what I mean?
Flamingo's got sexy legs.
No, they're sluts. They put it up for anybody. You know what I mean? They show it for everybody.
Yeah.
You got
that's
to
true.
earn that foot. But
What's the
there's
deal with
this
the
hilarious
currents?
thing about birds that live amongst humans. So there are so many birds now that are missing toes and legs in the city, in any city.
Yeah. Mhm.
And the reason for that is because they're around people. And the reason for
Why that's a thing?
why that's a thing is because they're in a parking lot or whatever, and they get human hair wrapped around their toe or their leg, and they can't get it off. And it just gets tighter and it becomes a tourniquet, and it kills the appendage.
That actually makes sense because human hair tensile strength is actually incredibly strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for that little bird toe, that makes sense.
Yeah, and they don't really know what's happening, and they can't really pull it off. So, like, there are a shit ton. You notice this if you look at them, missing toes and shit like that, missing legs, and it's because probably they were in some parking lot and some, more likely than not, woman's hair, just because it's longer, got stuck around their leg or toe and kind of kept wrapping and eventually cut off circulation and killed the appendage, and it fell off.
It's so dumb.
Yeah, it's fucking
Sucks.
crazy.
And finally, our last story revolves around an Australian private by the name of Albert Hard Jaka.
All right. Now, was this at Gallipoli?
Or Jaka. It is.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah,
Gallipoli is a wild story in its own right.
in its own right. Well, he's got a few.
Okay.
Because he's kind of like a berserker.
By the way, there's another example of an Anglo fighting the Turks on our podcast.
So Jaka's heroic moment in Gallipoli came in the wee hours of May 19th, 1915,
Okay.
when the Turks launched a massive attack on the Anzac trench line at roughly 2 a.m. The trench in front of Jaka was overrun by Turkish troops, who either killed or drove all of the Australian troops stationed there. Jaka's lieutenant was killed in an attempt to retake the line, shot in the head the second he stepped out of his own trench.
Of course, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing that's wild about World War I to me is it's like, oh, you put your head up. Don't put your head up, or you'll get shot immediately. But it's like, who are these shots?
Some of the best.
Where'd the shots come from? They
Like,
have
these
to
are the
get out of there
fucking,
too.
like, these are crack snipers.
Yeah.
At every inch of the trench. Crack snipers. Man, that was almost
was
disaster.
really bad.
Extras, yeah.
Crap,
Yeah.
but like literally, you like at any point in the trench, any line in the trench, anywhere in the world, you're just like beep, just peeking up, and some dude has you zeroed.
It's like you.
Done.
Now, to be fair, this is not from across no man's land. The enemy was so close they could lob a bunch of hand grenades right at Jaka's dugout. The Australian private knew that he needed to act fast, or there would be nothing left of his own troops but dead Australian bodies. First, he attempted a direct assault, but it didn't work out well. Jaka
Never does.
popped up, but when the two men...
And by the way, let me just say this real quick. You should never be saying the words, first I attempted a direct assault.
That's like your last
Yeah.
chance. That's your last
So I
bit.
started with a bayonet charge.
Yeah.
Didn't go great.
So he popped up with two men who followed suit. They were both hit by bullets. Jaka grabbed both of them, dragged them back to safety, and quickly realized that he needed to devise another plan.
Yep.
Gonna have to get clever here. Charging them isn't working.
It's that. That trench is overrun by many men.
Like when the
me get 'em all.
when the 20th Maine charged down Little Round Top, they did that at the end, right? They were out of ammo. They didn't have other options.
Right.
The charge of the Light Brigade, on the other hand, in the Crimean War, they maybe had other options. They just kind of wanted to flex.
Yeah.
Don't do a flex charge.
So Jaka had his team go to one side of the trench and instructed them to start hurling grenades and covering fire. While the Turks got busy with this sudden onslaught of explosive fires, Jaka himself sprinted across to open space of no man's land and then made a flying leap into the enemy's trench.
So
Wow.
his great tactical
Was another one?
fucking discovery was,
Go solo.
well, that kind of that, but more so, oh, if we charge, maybe what I should do is have other soldiers lay some sort of suppressive fire to make it so the enemy can't shoot at me
Well, the
as I
lieutenant-
advance.
The lieutenant was dead, so he's
Yeah,
free.
and he's
freestyling
private,
it.
so
Yeah.
Right. And look, this is why, and I hate to, disparage any of our great NCOs or enlisted men, but this is why the rich govern you, even in the military.
now hear it out. With only
kidding,
a
obviously.
bolt-action rifle and bayonet,
This rifle guy.
Albert Hard Jaka cleared out the entire trench of defenders. He shot 5 guys, bayoneted 2 more, and chased the rest off with the insanity of his attack.
So he just was like, he got like basically the star in Mario.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yep.
And I do think that's essentially what berserking is, going berserk is. Like, you essentially just get such momentum
yeah.
that nothing
Can stop you.
You go into overkill.
Well, it's like
Yeah.
even if you see like in football, for example, like in college football, like if you have like a receiver or probably more so a running back, and he just breaks one off, and he's just rolling. Even if like some safety or linebacker who you know is a good tackler on the other team, it's just like, you're not tackling him right now. Like, it's not happening. Like, this guy is fucking rolling.
Yeah, he's going to murder you.
Yeah, and that's just what it is, but it's real murder.
Yeah, they say war is a momentum game.
It 100% is.
For the next 15 minutes, the Turks returned with a massive counterattack to retake the trench, but Jacka fought like crazy and held the trench by himself.
With what? Not just the rifle. Would he turn the machine gun around?
No, his rifle.
You're not. It's a bolt action. Like,
maybe he found some stuff in the trench. Then
he had to have turned a machine gun around. You're not going, boo, 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 and fucking killing or even scaring off.
Yeah, a whole squad.
If I was with 100 people and they're like, hey, this guy with a bolt action rifle is going to shoot at us, he's got 8 shots, and we can all get to where he is in 20 seconds, maybe like 40 seconds, I'll take those odds.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't do it for free, but
it would be like,
if I'm already in the army,
it's like, this is going to be good for us.
Right.
More than anything. Yeah.
Reinforcements for Jacka didn't arrive until dawn. When his commanding officer reached the trench, he found Jacka sitting amid a pile of enemy corpses with a cigarette in his mouth. All he said was, well, I got the beggars, sir.
Got the what?
The beggars?
That was just what they called the Turks.
I guess.
I mean, Turkey, the Ottomans, more aptly, were called the sick man of Europe at the time. It was really funny, like, because the Ottoman Empire was like this esteemed empire for a long time, but once Europe started to like really get into its groove, they were like, oh, these guys are bitches now.
Yeah.
They're the sick man of Europe. They're fucking shitty.
They're on their way out.
Yeah, they're clearly on their way out.
Yeah. Great. Those things, though. Great.
And World War I ended them. This is why I think the only way China would ever fight a war with America is if they started it directly. Like, if Russia attacked America tomorrow, China wouldn't enter.
Why would
Not that China's a sick man, but like, there was no reason for the Turks to enter that war. They got essentially like coaxed into that war, and it ended what was left of their empire.
Yeah, why would China ever do that? It's like, oh, two of the other big superpowers are gonna whittle themselves down.
Right.
We're gonna chill.
We're gonna sit this out.
Yeah.
You guys have fun.
Have a good time. I mean, it wouldn't be much of a war. Assuming Russia didn't launch nukes, it would be. I mean, they can't even beat Ukraine. They're not gonna beat.
Right.
Yeah, those nukes are a problem, though.
They're the most nukes.
I wonder if they are. And here's why I wonder that.
Okay.
Here's the thing, Rob. One nuke
It's too many
is
nukes.
too many
Too many.
nukes. It's too much of a problem. All right.
They're a problem. They're just a big. Why do we do that?
I don't like this
You read
whole
about-
rhetoric that's just kind of preparing us for nuclear war. I don't want that.
You read about
I don't live
how
in that world.
the U.S. nuclear arsenal is like wildly outdated. You know what I mean? We still use floppy disks from the 80s, which is in some ways fine because it's very unhackable.
Sure. And then
You can't hack.
So the
You can't hack an abacus.
The Russian
you know
nuke
what I
that
mean?
lands in the U.S. is a dud. It just stays there. We still go into a post-apocalyptic thing after we break into World War III. And then they build an entire city around that nuke. And they have a cult, like in Fallout 3.
You want that.
I don't want that.
Yeah, you do. You
I'm
love
I don't know.
it.
You were talking during the Patreon episode like you want that shit.
I never want
Dude,
that.
you remember when
Your
COVID
haircut
happened?
says you want that shit.
Remember when COVID happened? You had an entire plan of how you were going to make Lifetime Fitness your castle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to continue to work out. But
Let me tell you something. If the apocalypse happens, every day is a workout. You don't need to have a gym.
no, I get that.
Oh,
But I wanted to be kind of like boarded up on the second floor.
you'd be murdered
Mm.
within days.
No. Well, you would too. You were part of the plan.
I wouldn't go with you.
Why?
Why would I? To what? Have a castle?
You were looking for shelter.
Go to the biggest building? First off, I have it with my home get torn down all of a sudden.
Are you just going to not post up with your friends?
You could post up with me
No.
He
in an actual home, not a fucking
a shelter.
gym.
Yeah. Isn't like Lifetime like?
It's like all glass.
I was about to say it's all glass, isn't it?
So it rains down on the enemy, you know?
Oh yes, of course. Suppressive glass.
Right.
I will say the one advantage to Lifetime is that they have to cross a no man's land of parking lot.
That's true.
That's the whole point.
A lot of parking
On the one end, they can sneak up on the back end very
from
easily.
the woods.
No,
Yeah.
because it's all kind of gated off.
Oh, a gate?
Oh wow, that's
That'll stop them.
well a fence. That always stops.
It always does.
Why didn't they just build a fence in between the trenches?
Oh, dude, weird. They definitely didn't build hundreds of those.
Yeah.
Now, Private Albert Jacka became the first Australian to ever receive the Victoria Cross, personally pinned on him by the king at Windsor Castle.
Whoa.
But this is not the end of his story.
Ooh.
In 1916, he was sent to Somme,
The Somme.
to participate in yet another
This is maybe one of the worst battles to be in human history.
World War I bloodiest campaign.
It's a fucking nightmare.
The Australian force would lose 23,000 men in a span of 45 days.
Holy shit.
Casualty rates. And the crazy thing about World War I is, like, obviously it's still 19 whatever medicine, 16, 17, 15, but they have gotten to a point where it's modern enough. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the Civil War, whatever. But, like, and that's why the casualty rates for World War I are so fucking bananas.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't even, like, their disease is to blame for some of it for sure. Disease is always blamed for something. But, like, it is a lot of it is just on the battlefield.
Yeah. World War I was just a fucking meat
Grinder.
buzzsaw.
Yeah.
It's meat grinder, yeah.
Now, a morning in mid-July 1916, Jacka awoke just in time to see another German stormtrooper rolling a live grenade down the steps of his dugout. Jacka quickly dropped to the dirt, covered his head, and after his ringing ears recovered from the blast, he pulled his revolver and went out to see what was going on.
What could it be,
What he
Jacko?
saw didn't thrill him.
Oh, it's war again.
Well, actually, if you read the Patreon blogs, you'll know that during that time period, they like to use words like excitement and thrilling more, I don't know,
Negatively?
objectively.
Oh, really?
You know what I mean?
Like, it wasn't like, oh, it's thrilling, it's good. Like,
Right.
It doesn't have a positive connotation.
Right. It
or
was
negative one.
just like it gets your blood up,
Yeah.
good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
So they would use things like,
Check it out.
he
This
woke
is
to an
sad, Rob.
exciting morning,
Yeah.
and it's not a surprise party for his birthday. It's a grenade got dropped on his face.
Yes, this
What a
is
thrill.
not a good thrill.
Yeah.
The Germans had overrun the Australian positions during the night, and they were now a good 250 yards behind enemy lines. He saw a company of 60-plus German soldiers leading 42 unarmed Australian infantrymen off as prisoners of war. So all of his homies getting kind of
Right.
Walked, yeah.
Rounded up.
routed up and
Not good.
chained up. He went down into his dugout, saw his 6 battle-weary comrades sitting there. A rational man would have realized that the only way out was to surrender. He did
The
not.
jig is up
He did
at
not.
this point. He did not.
Jacka, 250 yards behind enemy lines, outnumbered and exhausted, led a 7-man troop screaming out of his dugout, charged straight on.
Oh, the classic Jocko
Straight on
move.
at what? It's everywhere.
Yeah.
They're 360 degrees surrounded.
into the 60 well-armed German soldiers.
So
7
direct
versus
charge
60.
again.
Yeah.
Actually, that makes sense at least because get those 41 you know what I mean? It's like you got to get
Your
them.
numbers can get up.
Right.
It's a play for numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the prisoner of wars witnessed the craziness of Jacka and his men and were kind of inspired and started fighting back.
Okay, started jumping their.
The people that took them.
Yeah.
But Jacka himself was shot 7 times, including twice in the head.
Did he not die?
In the head or around the head?
He did not die.
He didn't die?
In the head or around the head?
In the head.
What are we talking about?
It says twice.
Piece out of the cheek? Because in the head makes me think
Yeah, you die from
you
that.
get like this, no, like between nose to.
Right. I'm
Yeah.
sure he got hit in like the cheek or something.
Right. That's. If you get shot through the jaw, okay, you got shot in the head. Fine, sure. But, like, there's a difference.
I can't imagine, like, getting shot twice in the head and continuing anything.
And he got shot 5 other times.
Yeah.
So he burned through his revolver rounds, took up his rifle, and bayoneted and kept fighting. When the smoke finally cleared, the table was turned. 12 German soldiers were dead, and the rest had been taken prisoner. So little old switcheroo, hit him with the reverse Uno card.
Yeah.
But didn't he say the lines have been overrun? How many more Germans were there still around?
There were 60, but then they killed 12, and then the rest got overpowered.
But if the lines are overrun, it wasn't done by 60 men. It was done by thousands of men.
60. For their particular trench.
Okay. All right.
Rather than head back to safety, the Aussies kept fighting and retook the line.
Nice. Real triumph.
Jacka received the Military Cross for his actions. He later received a second Military Cross for his solo recon mission deep behind the enemy lines. He captured 2 German officers who had spotted him laying tape to guide the Australian infantry.
For a attack across no man's land?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He tried to shoot them with his revolver, but the pistol misfired, so he just charged and took them down with his bare hands.
Good Lord.
Yeah, this guy's, you know what, last ditch effort is his first effort every time.
Yeah.
It's worked out for him. So
this is a deeply Australian story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's just, to live on that continent alone, you have to be a fucking psychopath. I mean, he's descended from prisoners, and by the way, it's only World War I, so not that long ago, descended by prisoners. Like, he probably... So this is a weird history fact about me. I am 1 degree removed from someone who fought in the Civil War.
Sure.
Right? Like, my grandfather's grandfather served in the Civil War. Right?
I'm sure most people did.
Mine didn't.
Did yours?
I'm sure I have family that was in the Civil War, yeah.
But what I'm saying is, do you know someone who knew someone who fought in the Civil War?
Sure.
You don't. You don't. You never
don't
did.
Know that? You don't know that. I'm
positive.
I never asked my grandparents this shit.
Certainly no one in your family.
No, they did.
Did your grandfather serve in World War II?
Korea.
Yeah, then he didn't. That's too late. You're too young.
I think my one grandfather did. He was a deep sea diver.
Okay, then maybe he did.
Yeah.
But whatever. What I'm saying is that this Australian person, probably his grandfather's grandfather, was some weird...
A penal colonist?
Penal colonist,
Yeah.
like, fucking, like, horse fucker psychopath. So he was not very far removed.
It's crazy to think that, like, they sent so many people there. They're like, well, I guess we're here now. We live here.
I
Let's
suppose
start a
it's the
good
same
one.
thing now. And they're like, yeah, no, it's the same thing. It's giant spiders, and we just do whatever we want, Annie.
Yeah, Jack
fuck
was
else?
honestly probably paradise for him compared to where he was from.
Yeah.
He was promoted from private to captain in his 18 months of constant combat.
That is quite the promotion streak.
He was always insubordinate to his officers.
Sure.
Yeah.
And when his own subordinates were disrespectful to him, he got them in line by cracking them on the jaw with a right hook.
Okay, so he was an asshole?
Yeah, he's just a dick. And he didn't listen because no one was punching him in the face.
Right.
He thought that's when he meant business, like, if he really wanted me to do that, he'd punch me in the face.
Well, his men being insanely Australian, of course, loved the shit out of him.
Sure, why not?
So it's not an asshole. He's just Australian.
He's just Australian. And you know what? I'm not going to judge their culture.
Mm-mm.
They're all prisoners. It's fine.
The men of the 14th Battalion even referred to themselves as Jacka's mob.
Okay.
Yeah. Jacka would later receive glory again, this time for taking half a mile of land and capturing a German field gun in the process.
For context, gaining half a mile of land in World War I is the equivalent to a running back gaining 700 yards in a game.
I was going to say breaking like 2,000 yards in a season, but I think you're kind of...
That's video game stats, yeah.
Your number is more apt.
This guy just ran 700 yards.
It won game.
Yeah.
In 1918, he was finally knocked out of action for good when a sniper shot him through the throat.
Oh.
Didn't kill him, though.
Oh.
Well, of course it did not.
Oh, need a throat.
Throats are for breathers.
But by the time he got out of the hospital in 1919, the war was over.
Bummer.
Yeah. Jacka got married, became the mayor of his town called St. Kilda, and died in 1932.
Oh, that's
Him in
kind
the
of
air.
He was buried with full military honors, and all 8 of his pallbearers were Victoria Cross recipients.
Wow.
But homie had 4 giant moments of glory. Got shot a lot,
got shot a lot.
Comes with the glory.
and by far my favorite story that I read about World War I so far.
Do you think?
And there's plenty out there.
He also served in 2 different theaters, and the Battle of the Somme alone, like that. That was I want to say that's the one where they're like that was the Stalingrad of World War One.
What is it? Like, what's the context of that battle? Like, where is it? Is it in Turkey or like?
It's in France.
France.
So he was in.
He was fighting the Turks first. in
Gallipoli was a
Gallipoli.
nightmare. Gallipoli was
Okay.
a fucking disaster.
So he was in both.
Yeah, the Somme was less of a disaster more than it was a clusterfuck.
Yeah.
But Gallipoli was like by the way, planned, I think, by Winston Churchill, Gallipoli was.
Right.
A fucking total disaster. Complete failure by the Allied forces. And then, like, needless slaughter, blah, blah, blah. And then I think the Somme was more of like a stalemate nightmare. Everyone dies. It was
like a
kind
war
of
of
like
attrition. Just
prototypical trench warfare
yeah.
situation.
All right. Who was your favorite story of the 4?
The Pigeon.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to top the Pigeon here.
Pigeon got
You don't like Berserker mode, boy?
All right. 1 bullet for the Pigeon is like he got shot 7 times.
Well, 8 times. The 8th time.
But no,
got
at
him in the
once,
throat.
how many times did he get?
7.
Yeah.
Twice in the face.
That 1 bullet for the Pigeon is like fucking 20 bullets
and
for
then
him.
it flew 25 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a pigeon.
Pigeon
I'm not
was
saying the
one.
pigeon. I'm not saying I value a pigeon life over a human life.
Over an Australian life?
Well, that's a different story, I suppose. If you want to get into the semantics of everything, but what I'm saying is that pigeon did something more physically impressive than I think anyone else did.
What about Homeboy who guided his plane as he was
Actually-
on the wing and shot?
That's actually pretty
He
good.
crashed
too.
into no man's land.
Check it out. What if you're the thing? What if you are the plane?
You
that's
are the
ripped
plane
apart?
is sentient.
No.
Yeah.
Because you're the pit. Yeah, the pigeon is the plane,
Right.
He's the plane and the pilot.
and he's ripped to
And-
pieces.
Oh, yeah. Legs falling off.
Yeah, I think it's a pigeon.
Yeah. It's a good.
I think the pigeon wins this one.
No love for our fellow American. Hall.
Jimmy Hall.
I'll tell you what, America, we're the greatest country on earth, but we steal a lot of valor off of World War I. That we
Well, he
shouldn't
was
have.
going in early, trying to fight
I
for
know,
the Brits and then
but-
French.
We were more like we're back-to-back World War champs in a way that like a dude.
We're
that-
a closer.
Yeah, but like we won World War II full season, no question, more or less. But World War I, it's like we were on that team that won the full season. We won it back to back, but on the first of the 2 back to back, we got traded at the trade deadline
Yeah.
to that team.
Well, you were that piece that got it over.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like we didn't do a lot of the work for that.
Did you guys learn anything today?
Learned a lot. Learned a lot about it. I mean, one, I guess the thing I didn't know was. Fuck, I actually lost my point.
Well, I'll tell you first. I think I guess I learned pigeons had a lot of redundant parts.
Yeah. Only need 1 leg.
Yeah,
You know,
not an efficient bird.
third pigeon's the charm.
Third bird's the
Yeah.
third bird.
I also learned that German soldiers are incredible shots. Lord, getting pigeons out of the sky like that.
I was just
Unless
about
it's
to say.
just an Australian man running directly at you.
right.
Yeah.
Well, those are Turks.
But also Germans. At
Also
the
the
end.
Germans. Yeah, true.
Yeah, that's actually that's actually way more impressive to me. I was thinking about that when you were talking about it. It's not like they had like bird shot and they were just like, spraying the area and leading the bird. They had to hit the bird directly.
With rifles.
Yeah,
that's really fucking hard.
That's a moving target. That's a bird. Like, it's so
What if a
small.
bird got hit with artillery? That bird doesn't exist.
It doesn't. Randy Johnson makes it look humane compared to whatever artillery would do.
Randy Johnson has a clothing line where
He's a photographer now.
he does like sporting events
He does
too.
the NFL.
Yeah. The logo for the clothing line is a bird exploding.
No.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Poor
It's
bird.
awesome.
I guess that's the thing I learned. Really, I mean, I already knew this, but it's always fun to have it be reestablished or relearned or whatever. It's just that such a useless war.
It was.
And it's like the epitome of everything.
It all could have been prevented with a better sandwich. We learned that actually a couple of
Better driver.
better driver too.
How you get lost on the
one road
drive back?
Yeah, it's like
You've already done this drive, man.
it's the same thing the other way, man.
Or any relevant security whatsoever.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, hey, we're not going out anymore.
Yeah,
If someone tried to murder Joe Biden tomorrow, and then he was like, okay, well, that ended, right? We didn't catch him, but that ended? All right, I'm going to keep walking around.
yeah.
He gave a speech and then was like, all right, let's go back.
Yeah, fucking insane.
But to
Yeah.
be fair, I mean, if I'm Princip, I would probably give up too and get a sandwich. But it was dropped in his lap.
Yeah.
I guess. He died 2 years later, by the way. Like, it didn't work out well for him. He
Yeah.
died before the end of World War
He
I.
gets caught
Immediately. And he's died in prison.
like a dick.
For what? For Serbia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Serbs have always been a problem.
I mean, if you're going to die for a country, at least let it be like America or Rome or something. Good Lord. Like,
It's brutal.
They cause a lot of issues.
Yeah, man. You're like, oh, for Serbia, like ruined the world for a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I understand if you're going to die for a country you're defending, that's one thing. I don't necessarily think he was defending it.
No.
It's like we're better.
Right? Because obviously Ukraine's no, like, amazing country, but they deserve to defend every ounce of their fucking land. But that's different. They were
They
invaded.
went. Princip and company went on the road.
Yeah, let's not act like Ukraine's all Happyville. Like it's nuts over there too.
Yeah, 100%.
They have
but
a lot
like,
of problems.
yeah, oh yeah, there wasn't some perfect country.
Yeah.
That
Yeah, but the Ukrainians weren't going into Russia and assassinating Putin.
Yeah.
right.
Exactly.
Or,
Yeah.
I guess not Putin, but like a lower level general.
Medvedev.
Who's Hitler for today?
He's probably some at art school or, you know.
Hitler is at art school. No, he's in the war. I mean, he fought in World War.
Oh,
He was
yeah,
injured in World War One.
Hitler's
Got gassed or some bullshit.
Yeah.
But he was a
Hitler's
runner,
villains.
which means he was useless.
Yeah, so he didn't really do much.
Mm.
So Hitler's Hitler in a way. I would say the Hitler of this episode is, well, the people that were so good at shooting a bird.
Like, what were you doing?
So mean.
Crack snipers though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, gosh, I mean, it was really only a good guy's story.
Yeah.
Like, story after story was just a good guy. I'll say whoever, here's my Hitler, whatever idiot decided they didn't need an extra body for what's his name, the pilot.
Which pilot?
The
Those
15
two?
year-old?
UK guy.
The Canadian?
The 15-year-old kid.
The one that got kicked out was an American and got kicked out.
That's
yeah,
Hall.
Yeah.
Hall.
Yeah. What? You don't need somebody?
No.
That's Hitler. They're like, no, we'll have one of our own die in your place. Thank you.
But the Canadian did. The Canadian went into service when he was like 14. They're like, you're too young. But then Hall also went and tried to pose as like a Frenchman and a Brit, and they wouldn't let him in.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So the recruiter or the guy who was in charge of his like squadron, it's like, no, you're too American.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I'm going to go with anyone who denies someone who wants to fight for their side.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certain examples like, oh, you're a convicted murderer and you escaped from jail and you want to be in my army. No, we're going to pass. But like, if it's just like someone who's like, I'm here to fight for you, train me or whatever, and I'm going to fight on your side, and you're like, you're not from the right country.
No,
bye.
I'm fine with the murderers being over at war.
Well, that's what the Russians do now.
Right.
Yeah.
What are we? Some kind of Suicide Squad?
I've never seen that movie.
You shouldn't.
I
Yeah, I wouldn't
never
recommend
been
it.
told to.
It's not good.
That's the first one too. That's not even the
Yeah.
new one, the James Gunn one.
Pass on
Yeah.
all of it.
But that is it for today's episode. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure to leave a review on Apple and Spotify. 5 stars, please and thank you. Check us out at softcorehistory.com for some merch. And, of course, patreon.com/softcorehistory. Extra episode every week. This week, Rob, what did we cover again?
The Pit of Limbs.
Pit of Limbs.
So actually, what we really covered was warfare in the Neolithic era. So warfare prior to writing, but post. You can't call it caveman warfare because this is kind of post caveman.
Right.
But it's essentially like, we talked about, if you know the show at all, Karahan Tepe, City of Dicks,
if you know, you
whatever. It's those people's type of warfare and all the fucked up shit they did to each other. So kind of like prehistory warfare, but not like total caveman warfare. It's more like warfare of early societies who hadn't invented writing, and boy, did they do fucked up shit to each other.
And it's like why they did it too,
and why, and we and I know why, and we explain why they did it as well, which historians and archaeologists have a pretty good idea of.
If you're into mainstream archaeology,
Which you will understand that reference if you listen to Patreon. Fucking mainstream. Big archaeology doesn't want you to know.
Yeah.
So thanks for tuning in. We love you guys. For Jay Goldman, Rob Fox, I'm Dan Regester, and you just got soft served.